what is the least impressive thing about the Maple Leaf start, in your opinion, Brian?
Well, I think, first off, I'm amazed that having worked here, and I just said this, I just finished doing radio in Vancouver. In Canadian markets, there's way too much credit given to a team that wins a couple games and way too much panic when they lose a couple games. But there are a couple things that are disconcerting. One, I said confidently that this team could withstand the loss of John Tavares better than a lot of teams because of their depth at forward, and it's clear they miss him greatly. And I think he's a great player, and they miss him. The micromanaging on the goaltender situation to me is laughable. If I'm not mistaken, and I think the math supports Mike's theory of how this works, right? Isn't it? Aren't they like 60 and 20 in these back-to-backs?
Yep.
In the last couple of years, it's crazy. So that one has really amused me, and I'm amazed that Mike hasn't snapped on it. Like, okay, it's the way he's done it since he got here. It didn't attract great attention until this season, and all of a sudden, the micromanaging point was the Boston game. Like, why not play Freddie against Boston? And all of a sudden it became, well, we're going to question the whole system of how they assign goaltending duties because it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I find that amusing. I think the notion, and I think it was smart how they're trying to push or promote Austin Matthews as a 200-foot center. And they're saying he's a great defensive center. Clearly he's not, but he's a kid. And he's learning. Like he's making adjustments and getting better at it by the hour. But right now, if he's got to go head-to-head with that top matchup, he's not ready for that in terms of the defensive coverage. They've protected him carefully the last couple of years. So I like their team. I like their goaltending. They're just going through a little bit of a funk right now, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, there's a lot to take away from what you just said there, but I'll start with the Matthews thing. I think that they sold him as a capable defensive forward because of the skill set and what we've seen from him in terms of his ability to take pucks off of other players' stick. Do you feel like they oversold that because, they thought it could be there or that it's never going to be there?
No, I think they thought it could be there, and I think they're trying to encourage him. I have no problem with what they said. I think they're praising him because he's made some adjustments. Look, you play the Boston Bruins, you play against David Krejci. That's a tough assignment. He's a good player. But it's not as tough as playing against Patrice Bergeron, where this guy's going to battle you for 200 feet. And I think the 200-foot player, someone told me that I invented that term, which I don't think is true, but it's become so overused. If you're even reasonably sound defensively, you're a 200-foot player now. And it used to be a 200-foot player was reserved for guys, Selke candidates, like really good defensive players. So I think what they were doing is trying to praise him. I think he has made positive steps in that direction. He's a kid. He's a young kid. So I think they oversold it. And I think the warts show up now where he's getting the top matchups. If you want these minutes and you want that money, this is how you get it. You're not going to play against David Krejci. You're going to play against Patrice Bergeron. And it's a little bit harder. And he's finding it's a little bit harder. But I see positive changes in his game already. I think he's already making adjustments and trying to get better at it.
That's true. I imagine that he's trying. I think, though, we were discussing this yesterday. Do you find that it makes it more difficult to be patient with development? Or in general, that development becomes harder now that RFAs, guys when they are still Matthews' age, get paid that much money and that big a portion of your salary cap?
Yes, and you're in Canada, where people despise overpaid athletes. Like in the States, they're used to it. But in Canada, I found everywhere I worked in Canada, and I worked in 3 of the markets, people resented big salaries unless you were performing. No one's resented John Tavares because he's delivered since he got here. But people resent big salaries on guys who are not delivering. And it's Canada, and it gets accelerated and exaggerated and overblown. And so, yes, people say, well, yeah, he's a kid. He's only – how old is he, 21, 22?
I think he's
22.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's 22. And I say, as a hockey GM, 22, every player I ever had was learning at 22, was still developing at 22. I never had a guy who was fully mature. Well, maybe Pavel Bure. He might have been at 22. But most of the other guys were still maturing at that point. And the fan says, or the season ticket holder says, $11.6 million. Develop my butt. Make the plays. And so it's the cauldron, like you mentioned, the RFAs that get paid, the expectations that come with that. So it's all part of the bargain. You want to get paid like that, then you're going to withstand that scrutiny. It's not going to change.
Head coach is still trying to win. He's trying to do still the best thing for his team in the moment to try and win. Do you think that was the correct course of action then on Tuesday against the Boston Bruins, despite the fact that they were getting filled in every time that they were on the ice against the perfection line, Matthews and Marner, to keep them out there?
Well, it was a close game. I don't know about filled in, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
What would your alternative be?
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
What would your alternative be with Tavares out? I think it is a big hole, and even though I said it wasn't, I found out it's a much bigger hole than I thought it was. And how do you make Mitch and Austin better if you don't play them in that head-to-head? So, like, to me, I have no problem. The micromanaging that's going on around Mike Babcock right now, to me, is bizarre. It's like, because I always faulted my players when we lost. Very seldom the coach. When we lost games, I'd say our players weren't good enough. Like the game plans, the preparation. He's got great assistant coaches. Their preparation is perfect. It's done. It's excellent. So when the execution doesn't happen, I don't blame the coaches often as I blame the players. But everyone's circling on Mike. I don't know if that's because he's curt with the media or because he's highly compensated. I don't know, but I find it bizarre.
Well, I would say that, when you're talking about Canadians get resentful of big salaries, and especially when you don't live up to them, Mike Babcock's paid higher than any coach in the NHL. Like, he's supposed to be the biggest advantage that this team has. And so, I guess you feel as though he's delivering.
I'm going to interrupt you, which I don't do often. Fair enough. You're right. That comes with it, too.
So, but do you think he is delivering?
Well, right now they're struggling right now. They're in the quicksand right now, but the team has gotten better every year Mike's been here. So, yes, I think he's delivered as promised. We'll see how they work through this little dry spell they're in. They'll get Tavares back pretty quickly. I do believe in the goaltender. I think even though they have a lot of few goals, I think Freddie's the real deal. I'm not sure about Hutchinson yet. And the backup's going to have to win you at least 10 games. At least 10 games. And I'm not sure that's going to happen. So we'll see.
When is the time, or what are the signs that it's time for a change? Because you've done that in your career as well. Like, when do you know that it's like that card needs to be played?
Well, I don't think they're even close. There's usually some telltale signs. There's usually a sniper or two that comes up. So if you're the GM, first call you get is from an agent who says, my player hates your coach. And you tell the guy to stick his opinion right in his ear and get lost. But then a second agent calls you and he says, I got two guys on the team and they can't stand the coach. So now you start wondering. And then there's usually a sniper shot. So an unnamed player will say something nasty about the coach. And that's what we call a sniper, right? And that's pretty gutless, but that's usually what happens. And then all of a sudden it's a flood, an onslaught, a flood. And none of those things have happened to my knowledge. Like, I talked to a lot of agents. Not one of them has said to me they detest Mike Babcock or he's got anarchy in the room or anything like that. They appear to be listening. So to me, I think that's very premature. It's not helped by the fact, two things, that Mike has publicly feuded with management about certain players. Mm-hmm. The backup goalie, what Jason Spetz's role will be. He's taken on the GM publicly in both those cases. That doesn't help. And it's not helped by the fact that they've got a pretty good young coach with the Marlies who's got real close ties going way back with Kyle Dubas. So that fuels the speculation. But to me, it's very premature to talk about anything like that. I think Mike Babcock is a good coach. I really do.
Yeah, he's going to be a Hall of Famer someday, and I think he's a good coach too. I think sometimes it's a matter of fit, right? Where you say, okay, well, you can be good, but you might not fit with this group. And I'd say the other thing that people have kind of circled as of late in terms of criticisms of him is that he has preached the message, we need to start on time, over and over and over again. And this team has continuously been a bad first period team. They generally struggle to come out of the gates. And I wonder why you think that is, and how much you put on him.
Well, you're going to be disappointed in my answer. I never felt it was my coach's job to get players ready to play. The money we pay these guys, they goddamn well better be ready to play. That's not the coach's job for me. The coach's job is prepare them to play. Here is what's going to happen tonight, fellas. Here is what you're going to see. Here is what is going to happen. Here are the player combinations you're going to see, and this is the way we're going to attack this. That's called preparation. As far as the player being ready to play and start on time, I mean, the coach can give all the rah-rah talks he wants. Players making $11 million a year should show up ready to play.
Yeah.
They should come out of the gate hard. Like, that's not, to me, a coaching problem. I would have a meeting with the team and say, what's the matter with you guys? Like, you can't do a Newt Rockne promotional speech, you get these guys all fired up to play 82 times. They're supposed to show up on time. They're supposed to be ready to play. The coach's job is to prepare them to play. So this is not on the coach for me. Why don't we blame the players? They're the ones who don't show up on time. They're the ones who don't execute on time. Why are we blaming the coach for that?
You have misjudged me, sir, greatly, because I love that answer.
Yeah. Yeah, let's blame everybody, though. Yeah, let's throw them all in there.
Everybody gets blamed.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And it is early. It's still October. But, yeah, it's certainly for a team with Stanley Cup aspirations and, yeah, a bunch of forwards making half the cap. Yeah, it's a lot of hand-wringing in this city. It can all be over, though, with a good run, and especially when John Tavares comes back and they get a little help.
And Zach Hyman.
Yep.
They miss Zach Hyman.
No, for sure.
Zach Hyman's an important player on this team, and they miss him.